I know that I'm late to the party, as it were, when it comes to talking about Star Trek Prodigy, but since I finished off Season 1 last time and reviewed it, the back half anyway, Season 1B, I guess is what we call it, I felt like, why wouldn't I take the opportunity and talk about this season? Regardless of Netflix self-sabotage. Either way, hopefully you've gotten your dose of Star Trek Prodigy Season 2. If you haven't, it's currently airing on Netflix, and I can't even express to you how much you're going to be missing out if you don't get an opportunity and watch this show, because it is everything we Star Trek fans love and more. We're going to get into it right now. What's up, my know-it-alls? All right, so I just finished watching, actually we finished watching it a while back while I was still in Florida visiting family. I didn't get a chance to drop a video. Part of the reason is because normally these things drop and they go episodically back to back, but unfortunately because Paramount was idiots and opted to not keep the show, Netflix picked it up. Thank you, Netflix, by the way. However, Netflix also has that funny little model where they drop every single thing, so you have to binge watch all of it. So here I am, having watched all 20 episodes, all 23 minute episodes, and I am floored. I am genuinely floored. As a Star Trek fan, sometimes we don't get the opportunity to express correctly just what these series mean to us. And having just experienced, just shortly a while back, Discovery, and really learned what Discovery is. So Discovery is Star Trek when it's about one character, focused on a single thing. And the popularly what we've always enjoyed has been a more serialized, or a more episodic rather, set of events that focus around a group, an ensemble, if you will, so much so that we know each and every character. You get 20 some odd episodes per season in order to really delve into the character aspects of each person, and you really get to know who your crew is of your ship, and get to understand who those characters are. Star Trek Prodigy is no different. It has its own tone. Now, on its face, everybody's like, oh, it's a show for kids and this and that. But look, it's got Nickelodeon on the logo. And yes and no. Remember, Nickelodeon was the same company that gave us the likes of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And you'd be hard-pressed to find fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender who watched the Nickelodeon show who would call it exclusively a kids' show. I've long since been a believer that a lot of what the likes of Guillermo del Toro and other people think, which is that animation is not a genre.
Animation is not a genre, and animation is ready to be taken to the next step. We are all ready for it.
But it's how we choose to tell these stories. Same exact thing here. This is not, while season 1 may have started one way, it is not the way it's ended. In the beginning of the first season, we ended up getting the storyline of these characters. Now, what was Star Trek Prodigy's through line? If Star Trek Classic has always been an episodic ensemble cast that we learned to get used to, the Star Trek Discovery was a singular story about an individual. Star Trek Prodigy, it's a view of the Star Trek universe from the eyes of the aliens we have always encountered. Star Trek's always, regardless of which one we're talking about, classic storytelling styles, movies, Discovery, any of it, has always been from us as Earth or humanity side. Now, they've introduced other alien characters we fell in love with, but at the end of the day, the story's always being told from our perspective as Earthlings, as Terrans, if you will, as Starfleet, as the Federation. This series did something different and flipped that model on its head. And it made it so that we got to experience Star Trek through the lens of other species. So you begin the first season with this group, and of course, if you haven't seen my season 1 review, I only have the back half, season 1B, but please, by all means, check it out. If you haven't seen the series, go watch it. So then you get into season 2, and season 2 picks up right where everything left off. Now, this is gonna be a bit of a rambling review in that it's hard to break each episode down, because I don't know that I'm going to add much to the conversation that everybody else has already added because of time framing and everything else. But then Mrs. Know-It-All reminded me, the Know-It-All Nation probably wants to hear from me. And that was such an eye-opening moment for me, because I went, you know what? She's right. So this is just me geeking out with you guys about the things I liked. I might critique a couple of things overall, but it's very difficult to critique something that in and of itself is really good. And by that, I just mean I don't see a lot of flaws. There's a couple little minor things that I might nitpick at, but for the most part, the show is fairly flawless. The other thing to understand going into this is Star Trek Prodigy Season 2, if nothing else, and I think Season 1 also did the same thing, cemented it, but Season 2 it's a love letter to Star Trek Voyager. If Picard was a love letter to the next generation, yeah, I'm telling you, Star Trek Prodigy is a love letter to Star Trek Voyager. And we get wonderful characters who interact with a hologram version of Captain Janeway. Hologram Janeway. This season, however, we got real Janeway, who's an admiral. And the story continues in that they're still ultimately trying to find a way to rescue Chakotay, who took the original protostar on its first original maiden voyage. Only this time, what you're dealing with is some time shenanigans, because from the very beginning, you have the issue that they want to go back in time and they want to rescue Chakotay, but their fear and concern is there's too much centered around, because it's still a wormhole. The wormhole still goes 50 years into the future. Chakotay's still there, but where does it lead specifically? And there's even a warning by an extra century creature that we don't know yet in the very beginning. We do find out later. But there's this warning, don't go in here.
You cannot go.
Can you clear up the signal?
That is the signal.
It's literally as simple as, yeah, no, don't do this, don't go here. Okay. Who listens? Nobody. Come to find out that on the Voyager, the new Voyager, Dal and everybody else, who by the way are not yet full-blown Starfleet Academy trainees. They're still sort of cadets in training, even like they're not even full-blown. They're not even in Starfleet. They hold no rank and have no title whatsoever. They're just sort of, and Starfleet I guess is debating whether or not. So they're letting them learn. Is the gist of it. And so, of course, everyone's picked their areas of expertise and whatnot. Dal can't help from dalling, and Gwendala she's on her way to her own homeworld to try to have first contact in a better way. First contact that doesn't end in civil war and destruction and everything else. All the hijinks start when she gets there. It turns out that the kids discover that there's a hidden ship known as the Infinity. It's got a cloaking device. It was the ship they were going to originally send into the wormhole, that Janeway and them were going to send to the wormhole. By the way, you get the Doctor, which is great. So Robert Picardo plays the voice again, which is wonderful because you see that character. And he's every bit as wonderful as we've ever seen that character. If you loved the character of the Doctor in Voyager, I really think that he really is continuing that same tradition of that character. Love it. So then you get this... The kids discover that there's stuff happening. There's a secret hangar bay 3, which there shouldn't be. There's only 2, and they've converted a cargo hold into a secret shuttle bay. And Janeway discovers that they learn it, and she makes them swear to secrecy. Of course, we're introduced to some new characters, Nova Squadron, who's all by the rules. And because obviously, those of you who know the history of Nova Squadron, you understand why they would be all by the rules. That's a complete callback to the one where where Wesley Crusher and his crew is on Nova Squadron. They lie about some things, and an officer is killed as a result of it, or a young cadet. And this is all a callback to that. So as a result, Nova Squadron doesn't play around. They think that the kids are trying to get into some kind of trouble, some hijinks. We're introduced to a brand new Vulcan named Magel. I don't have to tell those of you who are Star Trek fans, seeing Magel, who's a send-up of Majel Barrett, the First Lady of Star Trek. I feel like seeing this character and sort of the name continue to live on. It's a wonderful tradition. It's great. And there's a lot of that, by the way. There's tons and tons of... This entire show is full of member berries and nostalgia, and none of it is... If you thought Picard was ham-fisted, this is not that. And if you think Star Trek Lower Decks is a little goofy at times, this is not that. This was very respectful of the history and the heritage of Star Trek in a way that I really appreciated. The other thing is, as the Nova Squadron is trying to chase them down, through one thing or another, circumstances being what they are, and plot, the Infinity gets launched, and you end up dealing with these kids having gone back in time. It's not a good scenario. They end up accidentally... They go 50 years into the future, but they get there too early. They get there just before they managed to see secret footage of Chakotay and his first officer escaping, and they can't get anywhere. And they don't want to leave the protostar there, so they send the protostar back, and that's how ultimately the protostar ends up on Malgamora or whatever. The asteroid it was on the prison asteroid it was on in season 1. And so this time the kids are there and they're trying not to get in trouble and cause any issues, and ends up happening, of course, as happens, they just by being there they cause trouble and have issues. Dal leaves a blaster accidentally on the ground. This time around, it's there. It wasn't there before. Chakotay picks it up. It gives him the defensive posture he needs to get on the ship. They never got on the ship the first time around. They have now messed with time. So as a result, you have this whole thing. There's an entire storyline throughout the entire series, because the first thing that's going to happen is if the ship never isn't where it's supposed to be and doesn't end up happening the way it's supposed to happen, then Gwendal is never created. She's never born.
What's happening?
And if she's never born, then Dal's heartbroken. I don't know. The world ends. I don't know. It's paradoxes and the whole thing. That's when they begin having different incidences having to do with time. And eventually you find out there are these parasite creatures that are pretty scary, actually, that are trying to fix the paradox by erasing it. It's very discount TVA in how it's executed, not what it is, because these are creatures. Wesley Crusher is back as his normal self, Traveler-esque. The other Travelers, I guess, have left, and so he's there, and they've left this universe, rather, and so he's there, and he's the only one who's sitting around able to fix things, and he's the one that has been trying to tell them stuff. And it's just, again, everything gets, Gwen has a device that the doctor makes her to help fix phasing resonance through the different dimensions and stuff in time, and so she doesn't disappear because time's trying to fix itself. There's wonderful callbacks. It's beautiful. You get to see Janeway, and you get to see the likes of Admiral Jellicoe is back, which is great. The other thing that this show does, it intertwines with everything happening in the 25th century beautifully. It intertwines so harmoniously. It's the reason why when I compare certain things that are going on right now, like in Star Wars land, like with the Acolyte and other things, while I'm not necessarily a canon freak, I will say seeing this show continue to be as faithful to Star Trek and its ethos and everything else is bar none and amazing. It's amazing to me. Because again, it's like the meme that they showed where it's like, hey, here's the crew of the Next Gen on the bridge of their ship, and that's what they got. Like, this is what Star Trek fans got, and then this is what Star Wars fans got. Okay, exactly. It's that whole idea. This show intertwines events so beautifully with the 25th century, with things happening, and just all these pieces and parts that come together. Janeway is characterized perfectly. So throughout the series, they're continually trying to get help from Starfleet, but Starfleet can't help them because they're hip deep in the middle of the Romulan evacuation. Those of you who know anything, remember anything, the Romulan evacuation is a key point in time. Admiral Picard is leading the charge and everything else, and all the ships. That's one of the reasons why the Prodigy and the Voyager 2 or Voyager A, whatever, are not intermingling too much with other Starfleet ships, is because there's no other Starfleet ships available. They're all trying to get the evacuation of Romulus is a massive endeavor, one of the largest full-scale evacuations ever done. Robert Beltran plays Chakotay, which is wonderful. I really like his characterization continues to be very strong. Each character goes through their learning curve, their arc, if you will. Seeing Gwen, voiced by Ella Purnell, who, by the way, she's the young lady who starred in Fallout. She plays the voice of Gwen, and she does an amazing job. And of course, we get to see Essentia, who's played by Jamila Jamil. Essentia is rough. So for those of you playing at home, that when Gwen got home, Essentia was already there, Essentia from the future. And Essentia tries to, because there's a young version of her, so she can say, I'm from you guys. That solidifies the honest who she is. And she says she's on the cot, and she's the one, and she's like, look, I'm the one who, from here, these people are bad. This is all going to go down bad. This person who's going to show up is not real. They're not a real person. You can't find their history and their lineage. It's because she's a child of the future. So she manages to go see her own. Past by eventually finding the guy who was he's a librarian though. The diviner is not the diviner in this one. He's a librarian, and so that's where that whole storyline picks up. And you get to see this. It's very interesting the way Essentia takes over that society. So back to the crew and their time hijinks, because a lot of things are happening there. I love that we get to see Wesley and we get to understand a deeper, more full version. The other thing they do is at one point Wesley's hiding from these creatures, and his hidden place is within the ziggurat is like a 1960s office, and he calls back to the original time that so there was an original episode where you got to see who the supervisors were. Not the supervisors from Star Trek Discovery or from Star Trek Picard, though they are part of the storyline. That is part of that group. But back originally to the 60s, the supervisor back then, because that was originally a backdoor pilot in the original series. So he references that as, 1960 something or other, blah, blah, blah. It's great. And so to see that, again, they're so good at keeping everything together. Will Wheaton returns as his own voice of his character. Their style of anybody who's not our main characters, when we see people we know, because you also get Beverly Crusher, you get all these characters like Janeway and whatnot, they almost remind me of that there was a game that Disney had where everybody from all of their universes could interact with, and it was the way they were drawn and characterized. That's how these people look. It's actually really, really fun. As the series progresses, you continue to see Star Trek. It's highs, it's lows, it's ups, it's downs. They have a mirror episode because, of course, you have a mirror episode, but it isn't just a mirror episode with evil people. Oh my gosh, there's this wonderful scene where they literally put motor oil for a goatee, and even Murph does it. It's great. But you also get great callbacks to the movies, and you finally get to see Cetacean Ops. Those of you who are deep dive Star Trek fans, there's always been jokingly Cetacean Ops. This is where there are dolphin officers. Lower Decks actually did it pretty good too. Well, guess what they have on the Voyager? They've got Cetacean Ops with a whale named Gracie. It's amazing. Though there's a whale Starfleet officer who works in this watery Cetacean Ops environment, and at one point drives the pilot to the ship because Cetacean Ops still has a control area. It's stupid cool. And it's, again, the show didn't have time to Star Trek. There's too many people who are we have time for this, time for that. There's a part where they have to get a certain thing, go to a certain place and get a certain thing. And there's this whole sidebar where you get to see them racing and this and that. And in that race scene, that's where genuinely Dal proves to Majel that he's got what it takes to be Nova Squadron or a heck of a pilot. And I just love the fact that felt like old Star Trek. By old Star Trek, I mean the old serial episodic episodes like Voyager and those kinds. The name drops are all over the place. Tom Paris designed their new shuttles, their fighter shuttles, which are great. And there's so much that the show does or makes an effort to do in terms of trying to stay faithful and true to the spirit of Star Trek. And I can't help it. I loved it. I thought it was really done well. And I think you will too. So there's, again, a whole lot of other storylines that get really mixed into drop into the mix. And you get to see a lot of genuine things, but all of the biggest elements. And by the way, see the show. Please watch it. Where everyone's looking for Star Trek to for Netflix to greenlight a third season. Everyone's using the hashtag set a course for season 3. Do yourself a favor, do that. Use that hashtag. Let Netflix know that you really do want to see a season 3. Also, take the opportunity to rewatch the show. I'm currently on my second rewatch, and I'm doing my best to really kind of take my time and go through each one where I rush it the first time. So don't forget, hashtag set a course for season 3. Then we get to the characters themselves as they grow. Because at the very end of this thing, you think they're gonna get in trouble. They end up saving everything, and everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. You find out, as Star Trek does best, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, self-fulfilling predestination paradox. They're the ones who send the ship to where it's supposed to go, and they're the ones. They back up. They back up Hollow Janeway, so you're going to get her back. And at the very end, they do something beautiful. At the very end of the show, you see the synth overthrow, or the synth attack on Mars. They marry in storylines so well. Janeway is brought back from retirement. Chakotay picks her up, and she stands and she tries to argue with Admiral Jellicoe, and he's like, and you get the idea that Admiral Picard has already made these objections, which ties right into the storyline of Picard in season 2 and 3. And then Janeway decides to, and that's when they switch uniforms. Janeway decides to, she gets permission to keep one ship exploring. They don't, because they're about to literally decommission the newly commissioned protostar, the new protostar. And they end up, she's like, no, you're going to go out. You're going to go find, you're going to seek new, you're going to explore, find new life, do the whole thing, find us new allies. Because this is a really rough time in the Federation, if you remember. And I just love the way the series ends, and it ends in such a bright, high note that I believe Star Trek should. And I absolutely, and of course you get the nudges from Will's character, from Wesley Crusher's character, that this is not the end. This group will be together, and the universe is going to have reasons to thank them later. Oh yeah, and it's beautiful. The show is amazing. Watch it. Comment below. Would love to hear what you thought of it. So there you go. Now you know. And if knowing's half the battle, you're halfway, but you know it all yourself. What's an all index for the entire series? Come on, like you even had to think about it too much. Star Trek Prodigy Season 2 is a 10 out of 10. All right, guys, comment below. Let me know your thoughts. What were some of your favorite episodes? What were some of the events that really cemented that this was I didn't go through every single thing, so by all means, jump in and let's talk about it. I absolutely love interacting with you guys so much, and you can thank Mrs. Know-It-All for me having done this. It's more like a talk or a rambling review, if you will, because I just really enjoy the show. I thought it was great. I thought it's the epitome of Star Trek in a way that I genuinely enjoy. I'm looking forward to see Strange New Worlds and whatnot, and some other things that are coming out. I can't wait for Section 31. Starfleet Academy, based just on this show, I'm excited for. It's not going to be the same era, obviously, but the fact is, at this level, the Starfleet Academy level, there are adventures to be had, and I really do look forward to seeing what they come up with. So, all right, guys, do me a favor. Of course, if you want to catch up on my original reviews, that is the playlist for that one. That's also the playlist up there to some more great content for me, and you can always subscribe right here. All right, guys, we'll talk again very soon. Never forget, everyone loves a know-it-all.